Hey, what's up, you guys? So today we're talking about two stocks that I've covered before on this show. Namely, these are Southwest Airlines and Carnival Cruise. Now, if you read the title of this video or if you read the thumbnail, you would note that this video, I will be giving you the reasons why I've decided to sell out of all of my positions in these two stocks. So I'm going to be giving you guys sort of a rundown of what my thought process is and be answering the question at the end whether or not I think that these two companies are doomed, or do I think that there's opportunity still ahead, and will I be willing to buy back in. So this is going to be an interesting episode. So strap in and let's go. So before I begin, I just want to say that I still do have some Air Canada stock, so I'm not out of the travel industry completely. So if you look at a chart of the JES ETF, which is a ETF that tracks the US airline industry, you can see that it's been on an absolute tear recently, and it's just skyrocketed in value, especially if you compare it to its bottom back in March or April or around that time. So yeah, you know that the travel industry has been just doing super good recently, and this includes cruises too. So CCL and Norwegian Cruise Lines and all these cruise lines have just been skyrocketing as well. Yeah, I just want to give you the reason why I decided that it was time for me to sell out of my position in CCL. So let me just jump right into CCL. So for Carnival Cruise, I bought in the stock in multiple waves. So I first started buying the stock back in February when they had that initial big drop. And then I subsequently bought in other waves. And then my average cost, I managed to bring it down to about $18 per share. So that was around where my average cost is. And I decided to sell CCL when it hit about 22 and a half, so 22.5 and change. So if you're doing the math at home, that's about a 20% gain for me. So when I first started buying into CCL, arguably I didn't really understand the gravity of the situation. And what I mean by this is that when the Roni situation first started back in February, I didn't think it was going to get this bad, right? And you can forgive me for not thinking that it would get this bad, because I feel like a lot of people didn't think that it was going to get this bad. So when the Roni situation hit and CCL stock started tanking, I was like, wow, this used to be like a $50, $60 stock. Now it's like in the low 30s. That's such a great deal. So then I started buying in, and then it just started dropping more, and then I just started averaging down. So when it dropped to $8, I didn't really want to further increase my exposure to CCL, so I stopped buying the stock, and then I just sort of stayed at 18. So I was down a lot for a long time, and then now I'm finally break even. Not only am I break even, I was up 20%, right? So I thought that this might be a great opportunity for me to get out. And the second reason why I wanted to get out is because cruises have taken on a lot of debt. So I made a video about CCL earlier. If you haven't seen that, I'll put up like a card somewhere up on the top, or probably a link down below as well. So I made a video on CCL back then when I was still a shareholder, and then but this was back then when I was down like 50% plus. And CCL actually managed to raise some debt at, I think it was 11.5%. So that was sort of a little bit of a saving grace, where they were actually able to raise a lot of money, and that gave them a lot of cash in order to go forward. And that just helped them avoid bankruptcy, right? So yeah, that was a really interesting time. And that was the time where if you wanted to buy into CCL, if you wanted to like take a bet, maybe in retrospect, that was probably the best time. But yeah, I started buying in before that. And then when that time hit, I didn't really want to increase my exposure, right? So I just did nothing. But in retrospect, I was just really looking for a way to get out at that point, but I didn't want to sell at a 50% loss, right? I didn't want to just follow the trend and panic sell. So I just sort of held it on from there on. But if you look at how much the debt is going to affect them in the future, 11.5% is really a lot of debt. And if you just look at any other bond raised by any other company, they're usually able to raise money at much lower interest rates. Now with CCL, you're looking at 11.5% bond yield, which is really not good for the company in the long term if they have to pay that. And unfortunately, if you're investing in cruise lines, this is all too common. So this debt is just going to weigh down the cruise industry for a long time to come, even if Roni disappears overnight, right? Even though the Rona situation ends right at this moment, the effect of that huge debt load will affect the cruise line industry from now on for years to come. So I think that that's just an added risk that wasn't there before. And not to mention that CCL used to pay a dividend. With the Roni situation and with them having to raise debts, you can just kiss that dividend goodbye for the longest time, right? So I can't even think about when's the next time they might start paying a dividend again. It might be just years down the line. So if you're looking at CCL and you're looking at, oh wow, look at their great dividend history. Well, they cut their dividend, right? So there's no more dividend. So yeah, if you're waiting for that dividend to come back, you're going to be waiting for quite a while. So with all those reasons in mind, I log into my brokerage account one day and see that I'm up 20% on my CCL position. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna head out. Now let's move on to Southwest Airlines. Now I sold out of Southwest Airlines for pretty much the same reasons that I sold out of Carnival Cruise. Now I bought into Southwest Airlines at around $27 per share. So I made a video about that actually as well. So if you want to check out that video, links also in the description or probably somewhere on the top. So yeah, I bought into Southwest Airlines at $27, and then I sold out at about $32.40 and change. So if you're doing the math at home, that's also about a 20% gain. So air travel is a little bit less affected than cruises because people tend to take air travel for business purposes versus cruises is more of like a pure luxury play. But yeah, I think that air travel is also going to be very negatively affected by the Roni situation for years going forward. And if you're looking at the medium to long term, maybe 1 to 2 years in the future, it's still going to negatively impact it from this point forward, right? So I think it's going to take a while for the airline industry to recover. And this recent run up of stock price of the airline industries, to be honest, it doesn't make that much sense to me, right? So I bought into Southwest Airlines maybe a month ago, and then in maybe a month or a little bit more or less than that, give or take a few weeks, I was up 20% already. So that's like a huge amount of stock price gain just in that short period of time. And these huge moves in the stock market is what really scares me, right? So when things start to not make sense, when people just start pouring money into the stock market, and I'm not just talking about the airline industry anymore specifically at this point, I'm just talking about the entire market at this point, right? So if you look at the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones Industrial, it's just been skyrocketing, right? So it's just been taking the airline industry up along with it on its roller coaster ride. So I just think that such a massive increase in asset values within just less than a month, or maybe a little more than a month, around a month, it's very scary, right? So again, I log into my brokerage account and I'm up 20%, I'm gonna head out. And also, this might be kind of anecdotal, but I was browsing on Google Flights and then I saw that plane tickets from Toronto to, let's say, Tokyo was actually really cheap. So Toronto to Tokyo round trip, for a week-long trip, I think it was at the end of August-ish, it's only about $600 right now. Now, that's obviously an amazing price for a plane ticket if it was any other time. But if you think about it, I was asking my buddies about whether or not they wanted to take this trip because obviously I don't have a job anymore, so I have time, right? I could go on vacation. But, like I was thinking about it, and none of the places that you want to go are open. So I'm talking about restaurants, I'm talking about museums, I'm talking about concerts or just any type of events. I'm talking about national parks. So anywhere that you want to go is closed. And don't forget that once you get back, you're going to have to mandatory quarantine for 14 days. Now, this is not a problem for me because I'm unemployed. But if you look at like some of my friends, right, who have jobs that they have to get back to, if they come back from a vacation from out of the country and then they have to quarantine for 14 days, that's just going to be a really bad time for them. And their job is just not going to probably let them have an extra 14 days off on top of the vacation, right? So right now, it's just not a great time to go on vacation in general, even if tickets are super cheap. So yeah, the tickets are like $600 from here to Asia, but am I gonna go and actually go to Asia for vacation? Probably not, because anything that I want to do is closed other than walking down the street, right? So I can walk down the street. I'm not gonna pay like $600 just to fly halfway across the world just to walk down the street in another city, right? So it doesn't make sense to me to go on vacation. And I feel like a lot of other people are experiencing the same thing where they're looking at the numbers and they're looking looking at what the potential gain that they have from going on vacation, and they're going, tickets are cheap, but I don't want to go on vacation right now because I don't want to have to go through the quarantine process when I get back, and I don't want to have to, deal with everything being closed when I am on vacation in that new place. So I feel like a lot of people are not going to be too eager to jump back onto the vacation and travel bandwagon, even though that things are starting to open back up. There's just generally a lot of fear out there as well. A lot of older folks, I'm talking about like people over the age of like 50, 60, retirees, right, who tend to have a little bit more money and time to go on vacation. A lot of the older folks I know are very scared to still go outside, right? So a lot of people, they don't want to go outside for vacation and things like that. They're like, we're going to wait till the Roni situation truly calms down. We're going to wait till we have a vaccine before we plan any major vacations. So I just think that the travel industry, because of those reasons, because of that fear, and because right now at least everything is still closed, and God knows how long it's going to remain closed, probably a few more months, I think, at least here in Ontario, Canada. So yeah, I'm just looking at all the factors, and I'm just thinking that the travel industry is not going to recover super fast. Now, do I think that they'll eventually recover? Yes, I do. Right, so I actually still believe in the travel industry for the long term, right? Because obviously we're still going to need planes, right? Air travel is not going to go away. Don't worry about that. We're not going to just like go back to horse and buggy, but I just think that it's going to take a while, right? And same thing with the cruise lines. The airlines have taken on a lot of debt recently as well. So yeah, it's just going to take a while for things to start ramping back up, for the airlines to start, making huge profits again, the same way that they did back in like 2018, 2019. So yeah, those are just my opinions. And to answer the question originally about whether or not I would buy back in, I think I kind of hinted on that already, right? So I would buy back in if the price is right. So my answer to this is always the same answer that I give to every time I get asked this question is, will I buy back into a stock? And my answer is, well, it depends, right? So I'll buy back in if the price is right. And if the price is not right, then I won't buy back in. So if we see a huge major correction of the airline stocks or of cruise stocks, and let's say if CCL hits like $8 again, or if Southwest Airlines hits like, $25 or like low 20s, then I think I'll be really tempted to buy back in, right? But at these prices, I'm not really attracted to these prices at the moment. So I think that there's just too much risk in the travel industry so far for me to be putting a lot of money into the travel industry. I'm more of looking for like high quality stocks. And by high quality, I mean things like, Microsoft I talked about earlier, maybe Berkshire Hathaway, all these stocks that I think will perform very well, even if there is a major drawn out recession, or if there's even another stock market crash. And who knows, maybe there will be a stock market crash, maybe there won't be. But yeah, my plan is just to build up a position in a more high quality stocks that I can actually hold for the long term, and will be able to weather the storm if a storm actually comes. Anyways, this video is getting a little long, so I'll leave it here. Be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you like the series. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'll leave the links down below in the description as always. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.